The tension was palpable. Millions tuned in, eager to witness the clash between President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. This was more than just a debate, it was a battle for the soul of America. With the election looming, both candidates knew the stakes were incredibly high. Every word, every gesture would be scrutinized and analyzed. Trump, known for his unpredictable nature, faced off against Harris, a former prosecutor known for her sharp intellect. The question on everyone's mind, could Harris hold her own against Trump's unconventional tactics? As the moderator laid out the rules and the candidates took their positions, one thing was clear: this was going to be a debate for the history books. From the outset, Kamala Harris came prepared. She directly confronted Trump on his record, particularly his handling of the economy and healthcare. Her pointed criticisms forced Trump to defend his policies, putting him on the back foot. Harris focused on Trump's legal troubles, painting a picture of a president more concerned with self-preservation than serving the people. Trump, visibly agitated, struggled to deflect these attacks, often resorting to personal insults. Harris also seized on Trump's tendency to make exaggerated claims about his accomplishments. By focusing on concrete examples and highlighting Trump's own words and actions, Harris successfully put him on the defensive. She chipped away at his credibility, raising doubts about his fitness for office in the minds of undecided voters. Despite repeated warnings from his advisors, President Trump couldn't resist indulging in conspiracy theories. He again brought up unsubstantiated claims about voter fraud, echoing his baseless assertions that the previous election was stolen. This line of argument, while popular amongst his base, did little to appeal to moderate voters. Trump went even further, delving into bizarre and unfounded claims about immigrants. This reliance on misinformation further fueled the perception that Trump was out of touch with reality. Fact-checkers were quick to point out the inaccuracies in Trump's statements, but the damage was done. By giving credence to conspiracy theories, Trump undermined trust in democratic institutions and fueled division within the country. The debate took a particularly heated turn during the discussion on abortion. This issue, always a flashpoint in American politics, highlighted the stark ideological divide between the two candidates. Harris, a staunch advocate for reproductive rights, fiercely defended a woman's right to choose. Trump, who had appointed conservative judges to the Supreme Court, attempted to strike a more moderate tone on the issue. However, his previous statements and actions on the issue spoke louder than his carefully chosen words. Harris pressed Trump on the real-world consequences of restricting abortion access, sharing stories of women denied essential health care. She argued that abortion bans disproportionately impact low-income women and women of color, further exacerbating existing inequalities. The abortion debate underscored the deep divisions within American society. Throughout the debate, Kamala Harris sought to portray Trump as out of touch with the needs of ordinary Americans. She argued that his policies primarily benefited the wealthy and corporations, leaving behind working-class families struggling to make ends meet. Harris pointed to Trump's tax cuts, which disproportionately benefited the wealthy, as evidence of his misplaced priorities. She argued that these cuts came at the expense of investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Her message was clear: Trump was looking out for himself and his wealthy friends, not for the average American. To bolster her point, Harris contrasted her own upbringing with Trump's privileged background. She spoke about her working-class roots and the struggles her family faced, emphasizing her understanding of the challenges faced by everyday Americans. By framing the debate in terms of us versus them, Harris aimed to paint Trump as part of the problem, not the solution. The debate began with a surprising display of civility. Trump and Harris, departing from the animosity of previous encounters, shook hands on stage. This brief moment of cordiality, however, did little to mask the underlying tension. The handshake was quickly followed by a steely stare-down, a non-verbal exchange that spoke volumes. Throughout the debate, their body language told a story of its own. Trump, often leaning forward in his chair, appeared agitated and defensive. Harris, in contrast, maintained a calmer demeanor, her expressions a mix of skepticism and amusement at Trump's more outlandish claims. A raised eyebrow here, a wry smile there, conveyed her disbelief at Trump's assertions. While the handshake might have signaled a brief truce, the body language throughout the debate revealed the true dynamic between the two candidates. The issue of race, always simmering beneath the surface of American politics, inevitably took center stage. Trump, known for his history of inflammatory remarks about minority groups, faced scrutiny over his past comments about Harris's racial identity. His attempts to downplay these comments rang hollow for many viewers. Harris, for her part, didn't shy away from addressing Trump's record on race. She brought up his history of racist remarks and discriminatory housing practices, reminding voters of his long history of intolerance. She argued that his rhetoric had contributed to a climate of fear and division within the country. Trump's dismissive attitude towards these issues stood in stark contrast to Harris's calls for understanding and unity. The debate served as a reminder that words have power, especially when spoken by those in positions of authority. When the discussion turned to foreign policy and global crises, both candidates resorted to familiar talking points. Harris called for a more diplomatic approach to foreign policy, emphasizing the importance of rebuilding alliances and restoring America's standing in the world. She criticized Trump's isolationist tendencies, arguing that his America First approach had damaged America's reputation and interests abroad. Trump, in turn, touted his record of toughness on the world stage. He pointed to his negotiations with North Korea and his withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal as evidence of his willingness to challenge the status quo. However, he offered few specifics on how he would address the myriad of challenges facing the world. The lack of substantive discussion on foreign policy left many viewers wanting more. One of the most disheartening aspects of the debate was the blatant disregard for facts and truth. Both candidates engaged in exaggerations, mischaracterizations, and outright falsehoods, leaving fact-checkers working overtime to correct the record. Trump, in particular, seemed unconcerned with the veracity of his statements. He repeated debunked claims about voter fraud, made unsubstantiated accusations about his opponent, and cherry-picked data to support his arguments. His willingness to embrace falsehoods and conspiracy theories further eroded trust in his leadership. Harris, while generally more truthful than Trump, also engaged in some degree of spin and exaggeration. The lack of commitment to truth and accuracy was a disservice to the American public. By prioritizing political expediency over truth, both candidates contributed to a climate of cynicism and distrust. As the dust settled on the debate stage, the question on everyone's mind was, who won? The answer, as is often the case in these highly charged events, was far from clear. Both candidates had their moments, landing blows and successfully appealing to their respective bases. Trump, true to form, delivered a performance heavy on bluster and personal attacks. He interrupted frequently, deflected questions he didn't like, and resorted to name-calling when challenged. Harris, on the other hand, presented a more measured and composed demeanor. She spoke directly to the camera, attempting to connect with voters on an emotional level. Her prosecutorial background was evident in her sharp questioning and her ability to dismantle Trump's more outlandish claims. Ultimately, whether the debate moved the needle for either candidate remained to be seen. The debate, while unlikely to dramatically alter the course of the election, provided a valuable glimpse into the state of American politics. It highlighted the deep divisions within the country, the challenges of misinformation, and the erosion of trust in institutions. With just weeks until Election Day, both campaigns were faced with the daunting task of mobilizing their base, while also trying to persuade undecided voters. The debate likely did little to change the minds of those firmly entrenched in their respective camps, but it might have swayed some voters on the fence. The outcome of the election hinged on a number of factors, including voter turnout, the effectiveness of each campaign's messaging, and the impact of external events. Only time would tell who would ultimately emerge victorious.